Today, we are diving deep into the world of lipids. Now, when you hear the word lipid, your brain probably jumps straight to fat, right? But that is just scratching the surface. Lipids are this huge, diverse family of molecules that all share one simple defining trait. They just don't mix with water, like oil and vinegar. And it's that very property, being hydrophobic, that allows lipids to build the very walls of our cells, to store incredible amounts of energy, and even act as powerful hormones. They are, quite literally, the architects of life.
So let me ask you this. What on earth could a stick of butter, the cells that make up your brain, and a simple pain reliever like aspirin possibly have in common? I mean, it sounds totally random, doesn't it? Well, the surprising answer is lipids. Each one of these things represents a totally different corner of the amazing lipid world we're about to explore, from simple energy storage to complex cell structures and even to molecules that send powerful signals throughout the body. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the absolute foundation, the fatty acids. Then, we'll see how our cells assemble those building blocks for energy storage and for building membranes. After that, we'll check out some really specialized lipid designs, see how they can become potent local messengers. And finally, we'll meet the master regulator of them all, cholesterol.
Okay, let's get right into it with Section 1, fatty acids. Before we can build any of the cool, complex stuff, we have to understand the fundamental pieces. And in the lipid universe, pretty much everything begins right here. So what is a fatty acid, really? Well, think of it as a molecule with a split personality. At one end, you've got this polar head group. Now, polar just means it has a slight electrical charge, so it actually likes interacting with water. We call that hydrophilic, or water-loving. But then the rest of the molecule is this long, non-polar hydrocarbon tail. It's got no charge, so it hates water. It's hydrophobic. This two-faced nature, part water-loving, part water-hating, is called being amphipathic, and that right there is the absolute secret to how lipids can form membranes. Now check this out. Just one tiny chemical tweak can completely change everything about a fatty acid. On the left, we've got saturated fats. Their tails are perfectly straight, no double bonds, so they can pack together really tightly, kind of like a neat stack of bricks. That's exactly why things like butter are solid at room temperature. But on the right, you have unsaturated fats. They've got at least one double bond, and it's usually in a cis shape, which creates a permanent, rigid kink in the tail. And because of those kinks, the molecules can't pack together closely at all, which is why oils are liquid. Our bodies are incredible chemical factories, but there are a few things we just can't build from scratch. Fatty acids like linoleic acid, which is an omega-6, and linolenic acid, an omega-3, are called essential for that very reason. We have to get them from our diet. Our enzymes just don't have the ability to add double bonds past a certain point on the chain. It's also interesting that, generally speaking, omega-6 fatty acids tend to be pro-inflammatory, while omega-3s are less so, which really highlights why having a balance in our diet is so important. All right, on to Section 2. Now that we've got our basic building blocks down, let's look at how our cells put them together for two main jobs. First, to store massive amounts of energy, and second, to create the very membranes that actually define what a cell is. When you think about energy storage, this is the molecule you should picture, the triacylglycerol, which you've probably heard of as a triglyceride. The structure is pretty simple. You've got a 3-carbon glycerol backbone, and hanging off of it are 3 fatty acids. Because these molecules are so dense and completely water-free, they are an unbelievably efficient way to pack away calories for later. And, just like we talked about, whether we call it a fat or an oil all comes down to whether those fatty acid tails are mostly saturated or unsaturated. So how do we get that energy back out when we need it? It's a simple two-step process handled by enzymes called lipases. First, an enzyme called triacylglycerol lipase comes along and snips off the first 2 fatty acids. Then, a second enzyme, monoacylglycerol lipase, comes in to finish the job, cutting off that last fatty acid and releasing all 3 so the cell can use them for fuel. And this is where things get really elegant. Take that energy storage molecule we just saw, the triacylglycerol, and make one tiny change. Swap out one of those 3 fatty acids for a charged phosphate group. Bam! Just like that, you've completely changed its destiny. It's not for storage anymore. It's now a glycerophospholipid, an intensely amphipathic molecule that is the fundamental component of every single cell membrane.
But wait, there's more. By attaching different little molecules, or head groups, to that phosphate, the cell can create a huge variety of glycerophospholipids, each with a very specific job. Take phosphatidylserine, for instance. It's normally kept hidden on the inner side of the cell membrane. But if it flips to the outside, it acts as a literal eat me signal, telling immune cells that this cell needs to be destroyed. It's a signal for cell suicide. Others, like phosphatidylcholine, are usually on the outside, while phosphatidylethanolenamine is superabundant in our nervous system.
Let's move into section 3. So while glycerophospholipids are the main workhorses of the membrane, they're not working alone. Let's take a look at another major class of lipids, the sphingolipids, which bring their own unique structures and absolutely critical functions to the party.
So for this whole family of lipids, the foundation isn't glycerol. Instead, it's a different backbone molecule called sphingosine. When you attach a single fatty acid to this new backbone, you create the core unit for this entire class of lipids, ceramide. And from here on out, every other sphingolipid is just a different version of this ceramide base.
And just like we saw before, what you add to that base molecule defines what it does. You add a phosphocholine group and you get sphingomyelin, a key ingredient in the myelin sheath that insulates our nerves. You add a simple sugar, it becomes a cerebroside. Add a whole complex chain of sugars and you create a ganglioside, which is vital for cells to recognize and talk to each other.
And then you've got the real oddballs, like cardiolipin. This molecule is, well, it's weird. It's basically like two phospholipids fused together, so it has two backbones and 4 fatty acid tails. You find it almost exclusively in the inner membrane of our mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell, where it makes up a massive 20% of all the lipids there. It's absolutely essential for our energy production machinery to work, and just like phosphatidylserine, it also plays a key role in triggering apoptosis.
Okay, time to shift gears for section 4. So far, we've seen lipids as building materials and as energy reserves. Now, let's explore their role as incredibly potent, short-range signaling molecules. These are the eicosanoids, a family of local hormones that are all derived from 20-carbon fatty acids. One really important group of eicosanoids is the thromboxanes. Their main job is to help our blood clot and to constrict blood vessels, which is obviously critical for stopping bleeding when you get injured. And here it is, the connection to our opening question. The whole reason a low-dose aspirin can help prevent heart attacks is because it permanently blocks the enzyme that makes thromboxanes, which makes the blood less likely to form dangerous clots. The biology is all about balance. So, to counteract the thromboxanes, our body produces another molecule called prostacyclin. And it does the exact opposite. It stops blood from clotting and it opens up the blood vessels. This constant push and pull between thromboxanes and prostacyclin is what lets our bodies fine-tune blood flow and clotting from moment to moment. It's a really beautiful system.
Another key group you should know about are the leukotrienes. They're also made from the same fatty acid precursors, but they play a central role in inflammation and our immune responses. These are powerful molecules that, for example, can cause the smooth muscles in our airways to contract. And when they're overproduced, they can contribute to the awful symptoms of things like asthma and severe allergic reactions.
And that brings us to our final section, cholesterol, the master regulator. This is probably the most famous lipid of all, but usually for all the wrong reasons. So let's push past its bad public health reputation and really look at why it's absolutely essential for animal life.
Look, if you need any proof of just how important this molecule is, get this. A staggering 10 to 15% of the dry mass of your brain is pure cholesterol. This isn't some villainous substance we need to get rid of. It is a fundamental component of our most complex and important organ.
So what does it actually do that's so important? Well, first, it wedges itself into animal cell membranes and acts as a fluidity buffer. That basically means it stops the membrane from getting too stiff when it's cold or too mushy when it's hot. It provides crucial structural integrity. Second, it's the master precursor for all steroid hormones. Think testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, all of them start as cholesterol. And finally, since it's completely hydrophobic, it can't just float around in our watery blood, so our liver has to package it into these little transport vehicles, lipoproteins like LDL and HDL, to get it where it needs to go.
So, there you have it. We've gone from a simple kink in a fatty acid chain all the way to the complex, rigid structure of cholesterol. We've seen lipids act as energy bricks, as the mortar for our cell walls, as powerful messengers, and as master regulators. They are, without a doubt, life's master architects, shaping structure and function at every single level of our biology. It really makes you wonder, what other secrets are these incredible molecules still waiting to show us?